Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Johnson, and I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at Greensboro College. I'm here today with a former GC student who's now a professional performer, Sylvester Allen. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. It feels better outside than it did when it was, 10 degrees. So, doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, 20 degrees over the weekend, so it's nice to warm up to like 45.
Yes, yes, it is. I'll take it.
Sylvester Allen Jr. was recently in the Tanger Center's production of the opera Porgy and Bess, and he was kind enough to come back to campus to speak a little bit about his experiences at the show, his career, and just his time here at GC. I just kind of wanted to kick things off with what your most recent production was. So, how did you come across this opportunity to be a part of Porgy and Bess, and what was that experience like?
It's wonderful because, as far as your career goes, it really doesn't happen without relationships. So I had met a woman named Miss Elvira Green, who was at the Metropolitan Opera for like 20 seasons. And we worked on another project together called Wrecking Ball the Musical. And this was like 4 years ago. And like, yeah, I think it was 2018. And she just kind of mentioned, "Oh, Greensboro Opera is doing Porgy and Bess, and it's going to be at the new Tanger Center they're building and all that stuff." And I said, "Oh, that's great." Never imagined that I would be a part of. But she did ask. She said, "Would you like to be a part of it?" I was like, "Yes, of course." And then it got postponed a couple of times, and I was just like, "No, please no." I really, really want to do this. But she kept in touch and doing that, and she really transformed my voice throughout our time in the last project. So that's really how it got started, was me working with her vocally and working with her on that project. It was a new musical
Hmm.
written by a local person, a brilliant, brilliant person named Tanika Bennett. But that's how it got started. And then she called me and said, "Hey, the artistic director wants to come in and he wants you to come in and sing for him." And I know all about David Holly and how brilliant he is, and so I was nervous, but I went in anyway, and he liked my voice, and so one thing led to another, and we were on stage this past weekend.
That's excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
In the show, what was your role in like the story?
So I was in the ensemble, but I also had some like solo roles. So I didn't have a named character,
Mhm.
which is very interesting because I typically do when I do production. So it was very, very interesting because I found myself, as opposed to being fed through the lines per se, or through the libretto, sort of form for the character. I had to come up with that for my own, and that's what the director wanted us to do. So it was very, it's very, very intense rehearsal process because I went from, usually playing named characters and things like that to being in the ensemble and having to fill out those moments with, okay, what would this character do? I had to name my character and who's my family and all of that stuff, and to be present for what was essentially a 3 hour opera, that sort of thing. So I think I found my way, and the solo moments were really, really, I'm really thankful for that.
That's interesting. I mean, you have this like kind of story already set up for you, but then you still have your own ability to be creative where you're forming this own character. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely, because you have to, I mean, I know as an actor, I mean, I do a lot of acting work, not just a vocalist, but I do a lot of professional acting work. And one thing you have to do as an actor is you have to, the director may say enter stage left, but you have to figure out where you just came from. And they may say exit down right, but you have to put in your head where where you're going as a character. It's not just off stage. It's, are you going home? Are you going to the supermarket? Why are you leaving? Why were you there to begin with? So it became even more important as an ensemble member.
given the history of Porgy and Bess and just the names who have come across like that story, like Sidney Poitier, Lena Horne, Sammy Davis Jr.,
Uh-huh.
and even like the local connection of Leanna Giddens, who you had worked with during this production, and just in the past few seasons, past few years actually, of just Black creative artists given opportunities that generations before weren't allowed. Like, how does it feel to be a part of like that whole story now?
It feels I think if I would've and I didn't think about this before I was cast in it, but now I think about it. I think somewhere along the run of the show that I thought about, had I not done Porgy and Bess at some point in my career, I think I would have been amiss. I think I probably would have regretted that. There is a long legacy of wonderful and legendary, performers who have done this show, and not to mention it's a Gershwin opera. So so it's I mean, it's in its purest form, it's more than just about, a community of Black people, even though that is that, and that's part of what, attracts people to it. But it's a love story, and it's about what happens when you know, when you assume or you put it in your head like Porgy does that God wants you to be lonely. Well, this is the way you're supposed to be, and then you finally get that shot at love, and then that old chorus line where it says, "What I did for love," and then he goes to New York. So it's like um, that's a really really powerful story that I was content with just listening to it or hearing people do it or watching it. The fact that I got a chance to do it is really kind of a landmark in my career. It ticks a box that I didn't even know was there.
Wow, that's so inspiring. I mean,
Yeah.
I listen to, like, the songs, like, "Summertime Ain't Necessarily So," but just for you, the way you're explaining it, it makes me kinda wanna be up on the stage.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, now that the show is over in Greensboro, do you have any upcoming projects or shows that you would like to share, like, or do you plan on taking a break for a little bit?
I always plan on taking a break, and it never happens. And I don't think it ever will. And that's a good problem. So I was asked to do something with a North Carolina Opera coming up. Unfortunately and fortunately, I already have an engagement. So I wrote a play last year about a historical figure in Alamance County named White Outlaw, and I called it "The Spirit of White Outlaw." Some folks down in Alabama got a hold of it, and they asked me to come and do a screening and then sit on a panel. So, the dates for that opera that I would love to do. Um, Unfortunately, it's on the same weekend that I'm going down to Alabama for a conference with SASA, which is a Southeastern American Studies Association, and I'm screening my play and then doing a panel and talking about how I produced it. So it's just an opportunity as a writer to get your work, down somewhere else or up somewhere else. So that's really what I'm going to be working on right now. I also have some other projects that I'm doing simultaneously, which is, it's going to be tiring, but I'm going to love it as well.
I know we were talking before, this interview about the spirit of White Outlaw, like, the final piece. Do you wanna talk a little bit about, like, what that whole story is about?
Yeah, so there is, as I said, a historical figure in Alamance County named John Wyatt Outlaw, who is said to have been born a slave, and historians, kind of argue was he born a slave or was he not born a slave. Either way, it's a Reconstruction era story, a true story about a man who became the first black constable in Alamance County, and he was also a Union soldier. When he came back, um, the governor at the time, William S. Holden, uh, appointed him constable, and some folks didn't really like that, as you would imagine. So uh, they, they killed him one night.
Yeah,
So, and in a heinous act. So, and it gets gruesome.
yeah.
But what's even more gruesome, or just as disappointing and just as horrible, is that they buried the story. So what folks have been trying to do, especially recently, is bring his story more to light because he's kind of like a superhero. When you hear the whole story, it's kind of like he's really is a hero in Alamance County and really should be all over the United States because he was so brave and some of the things that he did and and starting a union league in Alamance County and knowing what his fate might be, but he did it anyway. It really is heroic and for so long, he was a police officer,
Yeah.
and in Alamance County, they didn't even have his name for a long time. They didn't even have his name listed, with fallen officers. So I decided to write a play that highlighted. It was a short play, but I'm turning it into it's a project to go into a full length play. So the play's about 20 minutes long, but it'll eventually be a couple hours long because there's that much material on him. And I just decided with everything that was going on that this would be the time that people would be most interested. And we did it. We put it on, and last year on the anniversary of his death, I think it was 2000. Actually, it's 2022 now, isn't it? And 2000, yeah, no, 2021. We put it on. And February 26th was the anniversary of his death, and it was well received, and a lot of people want their hands on it, and which is I'm grateful for. And it led to other projects, writing projects as well.
I know I was telling you before, so about how his name had kinda been, like, scrubbed from the history books, not, like,
Absolutely,
lost, but just actively, like, "We're not gonna tell the story about this guy."
that's
So
right.
I appreciate, like, the work you're doing bring awareness of like his story and like his heroic acts, as you said.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I also saw that you worked in like an army musician, and you
Yes.
had performed in front of like huge Titanic dignitaries. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So right out of college, I went to basic training, and that was it was in the heat of the war. So I went to basic training and got out. And the first duty station I went to was Korea. And in Korea, Barack Obama visited Korea, Hillary Clinton. As I said, Seven Dust and Hoobastank. We got a chance to do a concert with them. I moved on to Fort Lee and got a chance to do the national anthem a cappella, which is always scary. But at the Richmond Forum at what used to be the Landmark Theater, but now is the Altria Theater. It's 3,600 seats, and to put that in perspective, Tanger Center is 3,000, which is scary enough. But the former director, Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, was there for that, and so I went in there, and a week earlier, Jerry Seinfeld was using the same, you know, dressing room, so my knees were knocking, but I just remembered I was in uniform, and I said, "Well, this isn't about anything but, doing it the right way." So I went in and I did that, and I got a chance to do that, and more. So and I was in the Army for about 6 years. 4 of it was, active duty, and then another couple was, reserves. In the reserves, I went from, like it was like it's different because you're not just stationed at one spot, you're constantly moving.
Yeah.
And you are stationed with a certain band, but you might be in Hawaii one week, and then, like, a couple months later, you'll be in Alabama or Florida, or Washington, DC. So I did that for a couple of years while I was back out and looking for the next thing to do.
I also saw that you were part of one of the historic, I guess, film series in like America cinema with like the Michael Myers
Oh,
Halloween
yeah.
movies.
Oh, you really did your research.
I
That's
so,
great.
so how was it part being like just like Jamie Lee Curtis and you got the Michael Myers character? Just
It was really fantastic. The thing that I went out for, the casting director said that 5,000 people went out for it and like 40 people
wow.
got it. And I don't know if that's an exaggeration of numbers. They were trying to make us feel good, or if it was. I mean, it
That's
makes sense. It's Michael Myers,
yeah.
so I mean, that sort of thing. But I sent him my resume and everything, and I got that. And we actually filmed that a couple years ago, and it was supposed to come out in I think it was 2020, October 2020, but because of the pandemic, no one was going into the
Yeah.
theater, so they postponed it. So it was a wait
Yeah.
to see how much of it I was in. So, but I locked into it, and I watched it, and I realized I'm in like a half hour of it, and they got some great shots of just me, and it was like I couldn't
yeah.
believe, because I've done really small parts in big movies, and I've done really big parts in small movies that no one will ever see. Most people never see. But and this was just right. Um, and I'm really thankful for it.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Kind of, I guess, narrowing down like locations. We've gone from like South Korea to Hollywood. Now
Mhm.
we're turning back to Greensboro.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just your time at Greensboro College, like what do you remember of it? What did you enjoy the most about it?
Well, first of all, the campus is motivating. I mean, every time you walk out of your dorm room, it's I think people take for granted how beautiful the campus is, and that's really the most thing I remember about it as far as, like, the aesthetics of it, is how beautiful it is. There's greenery everywhere, and it's a close-knit, family, that sort of thing. When you get to the music building, everybody knows your name, and that never got lost on me, I always remembered just how important that was for music professors to be personally invested in who you are, not just as a musician,
Yeah.
not just trying to make you a professional musician, but who you are as a person. So I remember all of that. I remember Professor Clegg. I remember he told me one time. He said, "Most people are in this world to waste their time, to waste each other's time." That's
Yeah.
what it was. Most people are here to waste each other's time, because I can't remember what I brought up to him and trying to stay focused and all that stuff. And I think about that at least once a week. And he doesn't even know that I
Yeah.
think about it, but I mean, I should tell him. Maybe he'll hear this. But it's like things like that really transformed my thinking and how to stay focused and really weed out the noise that can get in the way of not just life but your career. So yeah, Greensboro College was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, that's really nice. And then just now, like, recently being a part of Greensboro College, I and having come from, like, a larger college,
Right.
it's nice to know, like, the professor knows your name, like, just even small things like that, that carries great weight, I think.
It absolutely does. It can be transformative for a student who needs that.
I know this was one of the spots where you were able, like, to hone your training, hone your vocals, like, your acting, so from your memory, what was, like, a show that you really remember enjoying?
I did Fiddler on the Roof,
Oh,
with, David Schramm as director, and, this was, I guess, in 2008. Um, and that really, really, really transformed everything because he gave me a chance when he knew I couldn't act. He must have, I mean, but it was hands on. We sang to life, which is which if you look that up, it's a wonderful ensemble piece. I played uh, um, what's the character's name? Laser Wolf.
mm,
So, which is way outside my range as an actor, but I did it anyway, and I'll remember that. I'll always remember that. Um, one professor, one acting professor in particular, and I was a music student,
mhm,
but I did a bunch of theater stuff. Dan Seaman, the recent late great Dan Seaman,
mhm.
really transformed everything that I thought I could do. I mean, he really, really took me under his wing, and I really appreciate that. We did Secret Garden. We did a show called Cage Voices, in which we really the ensemble members and and him really, really put together the show from scratch. And that was a unique experience because instead of just reading a script, you're taking it from a blank page and then going up and then presenting it in front of an audience. So that was really fantastic.
One of my last questions is, like, now that you've been to a lot of places, you performed in front of a lot of in a lot of venues. What would be any words of wisdom or advice that you would want to give to like a up and coming student, like working in that field of theater, music, acting, drama?
Yeah, thank you. It's a few things. Um, there's a lot of things, but there's a few main points. Well, the first thing is to embrace the journey of finding out who you are. Because the more you find out who you are, the more you find out what you're truly attracted to, what you truly love. The more you can do that, the more energy you can put into that, and the less energy you put into things that you don't need to be putting energy into.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a long time to kind of figure out, okay, who am I? Not just in my career, but in my life. And until that point, until I got to that point where I was comfortable with who I am,
Mhm.
I was kind of all over the place. Like, oh, I want to do this. Now I want to do this. Now I need to meet this person. And it wasn't helping it. I was just kind of wasting my energy. So find out who you are and don't be afraid to embrace who you are once you find it. That's the first thing. The second thing is relationships. You don't have a career without relationships. I don't care how good you are, what you do. So when someone gives you an opportunity, make sure you're ready for it. Make sure you treat that person with respect and make sure you are where you're supposed to be, where you said you're supposed to be, or where you said you were going to be.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So, and don't be afraid to talk to people because one thing I've found a lot is that it's easy to get intimidated by folks who have been successful in a certain thing. But the fact of the matter is, they're just people. They've just been really successful in
Yeah.
what they do. But those are the ones that you really want to, not kiss up to, but just talk to like a human being. If you have the chops, and that's the third thing is to have the chops and to be in the practice room and always be ready. So it's about relationships, it's about chops, and knowing who you are. But once you have those chops, you want to be able to talk intelligently and also real, very real to the people that you want to be developing those relationships to. Until I learned how to do that, I really wasn't going anywhere. I thought I might be,
Yeah.
but until I learned to open up and ask advice and and be myself in front of those people, that's when I started to get asked, "Hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to be a part of this? Hey, you got a good voice. Hey, you show up on time."
The simple things.
It really is. It's like, well, you showed up. You showed up today. So you have all of that. So as long as you bear down on those things, you should be fine in your career. And the last thing I'll say is, no matter how successful you get, don't forget about family because that's the thing that keeps you grounded. I know people are going to hear that a million times,
Yeah.
and I heard it when I was young, and even though I tried to embrace it, I didn't know what it meant. But you can get lost in the clouds, you know? So as long as you maintain a sense that family is as important as anything, and then you go out and you do those things that I said and apply those things, you're gonna be just fine, and you're gonna reach places that you never thought you were gonna reach. And you're gonna turn around and you're gonna say, "I did that?" It's gonna be after the fact. You're gonna, "I can't believe I just did that. I just stood on that stage, or I
Yeah.
just performed with that person, or I just learned that piece of music that I never thought I could learn." It's about staying grounded, but also shooting for the stars. That's the balance.
Yeah. Important words just for a young student. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming by. Congratulations again on Porgy and Bess, and we're definitely looking forward to hearing what you're going to be doing in the future. And let us know, and definitely don't be afraid to visit.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me.